according to a recent report, the Pittsburgh Steelers are locking in on a free agent cornerback. I'm going to reveal who that is here in just a second. Also, we'll go over the latest Steelers trade rumors surrounding guys like Najee Harris, the wide receiver position. Could Omar Khan deliver a wide receiver trade even after the Scotty Miller signing? We'll talk about that later in today's show. And then at the end of today's show, I got one move that I think Omar Khan should have made during this offseason that he missed out on the opportunity to do. So make sure you stick around at the end of today's show where I'll reveal that one move. So make sure you guys go down there right now and check me out on social media at Jack_Sperry. I'm trying to pass Jeffrey Cooperstein, our producer here at Steelers Talk. He has been absent from Steelers Talk Media here over the last 2 to 3 weeks covering the Dallas Mavericks playoff run. It's been absolutely fraudulent, so help me pass him here while he's away. Make sure you go to at Jack_Sperry on X right now. Give me a follow and help me pass Coop in Twitter followers today. Okay, so now let's get into our top story today, which is from Ray Fittipaldo here. Reports that there is a quote-unquote real good possibility that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be bringing back cornerback Cam Sutton for the 2024 campaign. This is what Ray had to say in regards to Sutton. I think bringing back Sutton is a really good possibility. Now, I think you guys know the Steelers will take their time with this and they'll let the legal process play out somewhat. They will let the commissioner's office do their investigation and then they'll get a feel for what the punishment might be, if there is any, and then they'll probably make that signing, I think, in June or July. And honestly, guys, especially if the NFL doesn't suspend Cam Sutton for his involvement in a domestic incident in Florida earlier this offseason, then I definitely think the Steelers are going to be bringing him back sometime this summer, sometime this offseason, because I think it's well documented at this point. You guys know this better than anybody. The cornerback room definitely needs some help right now. Yes, you have Joey Porter Jr., and yes, Dante Jackson was involved in that Deontay Johnson trade earlier this offseason. But outside of that, there's not a whole lot of depth at the cornerback position. Corey Trice Jr. is interesting, but I'm not sure if the Steelers can really rely on him after missing his entire rookie season, after just coming off an ACL tear. Darius Rush barely played last year, and everybody else in this room has no experience playing with the Steelers defense. So the cornerback position is definitely something that the Steelers need to address still in the 2024 offseason. So let me know, and you tell me down there in the comment section, would you bring back Cam Sutton to play slot corner for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2024? Type S if you would sign him and bring him back, or type P if you're going to pass on him. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show, so YouTube's going to throw an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. So now let's get into some of the more recent Steelers trade rumors surrounding some pretty big names here, and we'll start with Najee Harris, okay? And this is kind of from earlier in the week, but I think this is a complete farce, a complete joke here, where rumors have been swirling from a number of different publications that the Dallas Cowboys are interested in trading for Najee Harris, and the Steelers might be willing to deal him to Dallas. Now, guys, this just probably isn't going to happen, all right? This late into the offseason, maybe earlier in the offseason, I would have maybe thought it was possible, but this late into the game, I just don't think it's going to happen in terms of a trade between the Dallas Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers for the Steelers running back. Jane Slater, who covers the NFL for NFL Network, said on these Najee Harris and Cowboys reports, talking about the trade rumors, a team source tells me it is quote-unquote clickbait. So listen, man, I believe Jane and her report here and her source because it just doesn't really make a lot of sense for Najee Harris to be traded, at least in my opinion. I'll talk about that here in just a second. But first, Bleacher Report actually put out an article saying that they think it's a good idea for both sides here. And this was their trade idea here, where the Steelers would send Najee Harris to the Dallas Cowboys, who, of course, are in need of running back help. They did re-sign or bring back Ezekiel Elliott, but he's kind of washed at this point in his career. Najee would be their true number one, and then the Steelers would get a fourth-round pick back for next year's NFL draft, leaving them with pretty much just Jaylen Warren and then probably Cordero Patterson as their number two running back at that point. This is what Bleacher Report's Alex Kay had to say about the possibility. Rather than hope Elliott can thrive as a starter or wait for one of the unproven backups like Rico Dowdle or Deuce Vaughn to make the leap that may never come. The Cowboys should instead be seeking out an experienced but still youthful back on the trade market. Harris started his career red hot, earning Offensive Rookie of the Year honors after rushing for 1,200 yards and 7 scores on 307 totes. While the 26-year-old has eclipsed the 1,000-yard and 7-score mark in all 3 seasons, his concerning efficiency metrics has resulted in a steady reduction in volume. Considering the Steelers declined Harris's 5th-year option, it's looking likely that the 2024 campaign will be Harris's final in Western PA. Rather than lose him for potentially nothing next spring, Pittsburgh's brass could get ahead of the departure by sending some 2025 draft compensation for his services. So listen, guys, my take on a potential Najee Harris trade is that maybe earlier in the offseason it would have made sense before the draft, where you could potentially draft his replacement. Then it would have made sense. But at this point in the offseason, it makes 0 sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers to send Najee Harris elsewhere. Because consider this, guys. If they ended up trading him to the Cowboys, who's going to be the number 2 running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Now, I would trust Jaylen Warren to be the number 1 running back on the Steelers, and I do think the Steelers would rather keep Warren long-term than Najee. But you look at the depth here, and it's just not very good. You got Cordero Patterson, Daijun Edwards from Georgia, who's an undrafted free agent. I just don't really think that those are options that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be okay with. And in terms of free agency or trading for another running back, I mean, why would you trade a running back away and then trade one back to your roster? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense from the perspective of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I really don't think that Najee Harris is going to even be thought of as a trade candidate for the Pittsburgh Steelers unless a running back is also involved in a potential deal. And right now, Dallas doesn't really have anybody that's really worth their salt in that regard. Now, that same Bleacher Report article also has the Steelers trading for wide receiver Courtland Sutton from the Denver Broncos. Once again, this is coming to us from Alex K. from Bleacher Report. And I like this idea a lot more than the Najee Harris idea. He has the Steelers getting Sutton, but I mean, this is kind of on the higher end of trade ideas I've seen for Sutton. A 3rd-round pick and a 6th-round pick in next year's NFL draft. This is what K had to say about the potential of the Steelers landing the Denver Broncos wide receiver. Sutton could be one of Pittsburgh's priority targets in the post-draft trade market. Sutton's name has appeared in the rumor mill frequently in recent years, and a move could materialize now that the Broncos are working to free up cap space and start fresh in wake of their immensely expensive decision to part ways with Russell Wilson. Sutton is reportedly unhappy with his contract situation and has been skipping voluntary workouts. With a mere $2 million in guaranteed money left on his current contract, which expires after the 2025 season, there is reason to believe a split is on the horizon. Having both Sutton and Pickens in the lineup would set the Steelers up well for success in Wilson's first season. Given the signal caller is entering his age 36 campaign and hasn't reached a Pro Bowl since 2021, it's well worth giving up future assets to maximize the small window the team has with Russell Wilson under center. So listen, guys, when it comes to this trade idea, I am 100% on board with going out and getting Courtland Sutton. And there's a number of reasons why I actually really like this idea. First of all, you look at the production, I think it's pretty good, all right? It's not necessarily like legit number 1 wide receiver type numbers, even though he did put up double-digit touchdowns last year with Russell Wilson throwing him the football. Pretty darn good average yards per reception as well for him on 59 catches. So he's a very solid number 2 type wide receiver in my opinion. And then, I think that he's a really good fit for Arthur Smith's system. He likes these bigger wide receivers that can run block. He has multiple years left on his contract as well, 2 more years. You might have to restructure it a little bit because he does want more guaranteed money, but I absolutely think that's doable. And he would be that legit number 2 wide receiver option that this Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver room desperately needs. And he already has established chemistry with Russell Wilson. Again, 10 touchdown passes from Wilson last year. I think that he's somebody that could absolutely thrive immediately in the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, and I'm really excited to see if the Steelers can get something done for Courtland Sutton in a trade this offseason, especially because it seems like the Denver Broncos are looking to find more cap space, and it's looking like Courtland is pretty unhappy with the situation unfolding there in the Mile High City. So now, how about we go into a kind of a laugh here, guys, because this is an absolutely ridiculous trade rumor from Fansided here, and it has to pertain to DK Metcalf. Now, obviously, Metcalf has been connected to the Pittsburgh Steelers in trade rumors lately, especially because the Steelers aren't showing much interest in these wide receivers on the free agency market outside of Scotty Miller, I guess. But you look at this trade offer from Fansided, where the Steelers would give the Seattle Seahawks all of this. George Pickens, your current number one wide receiver, your first-round pick next year, your third-round pick next year, and then 2 additional mid-round picks in 2026 for just DK Metcalf. Are you freaking kidding me? That is just absolutely laughable. I mean, come on now. George Pickens, the reason why the Steelers are potentially trying to get DK Metcalf is because they still need another wide receiver in their room. So they're just going to give up their number one receiver plus all of that draft capital for just DK Metcalf? What are we smoking here, man? There's no way this is going to end up happening. Now, in terms of what I think could happen in a potential DK Metcalf deal, and listen, I've been skeptical as to just how interested the Seahawks are in trading Metcalf. I know they're up against the cap, but Metcalf's a really good player. They have a really good wide receiver room right now. Why would they want to split that up with Geno Smith still there? But I think if a deal goes down, it's going to look more like 2 second-round picks. Get out of here with the George Pickens and the first-round pick and like 3 other mid-round picks. There's no way that's going to happen. I think Metcalf would be worth 2 straight second-round draft picks. It's a little bit of a price, but guess what, man? Metcalf is 26. He's a perfect fit for the Steelers. I think this is something that the Steelers would actually consider if the Seattle Seahawks are willing to come to the table. Now, I want to go over my biggest gripe this offseason when it comes to Omar Khan and the decision-making that the Pittsburgh Steelers have been making this offseason. I'm going to reveal my one big gripe with how the Steelers have handled the offseason to this point in just a second. But first, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Fanatics. You can go check out chatsports.com/Russ right now. If you're excited about the Russell Wilson era here in the Steel City, you can get his officially licensed Steelers jersey right now on the Fanatics website for a great price when you go to chatsports.com/Russ. I cannot wait to get my Russell Wilson jersey. It's on its way right now. It's going to be fantastic. I might be wearing it when Coop and I go to Pittsburgh for training camp this year. That's going to be a lot of fun. So if you want to get your Russell Wilson jersey today, you can go chatsports.com/Russ to get it in your closet today. All right, now, listen, man, I'm not somebody that criticizes Omar Khan a lot. I think that he's one of the best GMs in the National Football League. The last 2 years, the NFL draft has been fantastic for him. I think he has a really good eye for talent, all these different things. But there is a move that they made this offseason that I think they could have probably gone a different route on. And I think that big mistake was or what I would have done here is I would have, instead of trading Deontay Johnson, and again, we know how that trade went down, to Carolina for Dante Jackson, kind of a mid-level starting corner. How about you keep Deontay Johnson and then you trade a 2025 third-round pick to go out and get L'Jarius Sneed? That way you would have Sneed on the roster. You'd have an amazing number 1 and number 2 cornerback duo, and you would have a legit number 2 receiver still on the roster with Roman Wilson playing the slot moving forward for the Steelers. I think that probably would have worked out best. I mean, you guys remember the trade details here for the Deontay Johnson deal. And it just, looking back on it now, the Panthers just kind of fleeced the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, obviously, the Steelers have high hopes for Dante Jackson. They essentially traded Deontay straight up for him. So obviously, they hold him in pretty high regard. And it still remains to be seen how good Jackson actually plays with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But let's also remember what the Titans gave up for L'Jarius Sneed. It really wasn't all that much. It was a third-round pick in 2025, not even in 2024, and then a pick swap, and then, of course, you had to give him a contract. So that's something that I think the Pittsburgh Steelers probably could have done. And in that scenario, you wouldn't have had to give up Deontay Johnson, who is one of the best route runners in the National Football League. Now, I know the Steelers, they were kind of a team that was like, you know what, we don't want Deontay in our locker room. He's a little bit of a cancer, whatever. You still could have used him in trade negotiations for a Brandon Ayuk deal or to get a different wide receiver in your room. And it just didn't really work out in that way for the Pittsburgh Steelers, unfortunately. And here was the trade details here for L'Jarius, where pretty much all they gave up was a third-round pick in 2025 and then a pick swap. And then, of course, after that, they had to give him a contract. But it was a pretty reasonable contract. 4 years, $76.4 million. That just comes under $20 million per year. That is absolutely something that the Pittsburgh Steelers could have gotten done. They could have restructured Alex Highsmith's contract. They could have restructured Minkah Fitzpatrick's contract. And all of it would have worked out financially. So listen, I really do think that when it comes to hindsight, and hindsight's always 20/20, I understand that, and I understand Khan knows what he's doing, but in hindsight here, trading away Diontae Johnson for a corner when you could have had a much better corner, in my opinion, in Snead, for a third-round pick in 2025, and you get to keep Diontae, I feel like that would have been the better way to go if you were the Pittsburgh Steelers. And looking back, to me, that's a pretty big mistake by Omar Khan. So let me know down there in the comments section, was trading away Diontae Johnson a mistake? Give me a yes or a no. Now, I will say here, guys, if Khan is able to land like a Courtland Sutton or a DK Metcalf or a Deebo Samuel, and you end up getting that true number 2 wide receiving threat, then I'm okay with it, right? I'm okay with this mistake being made because you still have a good corner in Dante Jackson and a legit number 2 receiving weapon. But if you're not able to get that legit number 2 wide receiver, that trade for Diontae Johnson is just going to look back. It's just as a mistake by Omar Khan. So that'll be it for today's show, guys. Really do appreciate your support. Check me out on Instagram or X right now. I'm at Jack_Sperry on X. I post Steelers updates every single day, channel updates, all that great stuff. And then for more NFL content, I am at sparedog.football on IG. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already for more free Steelers content right here on YouTube every single day.